So, the first thing that I need to do to get out of the way right now is to apologize that this is not a video that is a direct um, draft video for one of the prospects, namely the tight end that the Kansas City Chiefs took in the fourth round. That is the video that you were supposed to be getting today, but I'm just too tired. Now, what we will be talking about is some very good news indeed. Very good news that Brett Veach, guys, Brett Veach has done it again. Brett Veach has not only turned in a draft that has seen probably at least 3 guys who have the potential to start or get extreme amounts of reps, but also a UDFA class that has plenty of people that should be on NFL rosters, plenty of prospects that had a chance to get drafted. And look, I was at work last night on my lunch just kind of perusing the names, and I hit a name that I knew nothing about. So I wanted to go ahead and maybe try to look a little deeper into who this individual was, a cornerback by the name of Miles Battle. I was unfamiliar with Miles Battle out of Utah, and I would Google him and not get a whole lot of results. Google Miles Battle Pro Day. Utah had a pro day. I'm sure Utah had a pro day. Not get any results. It's getting more and more difficult to find results from pro days. There used to be all sorts of websites you could go to and just find the numbers printed out there, but you don't get them anymore. So I kept seeing little blurbs from articles that said Miles Battle extreme athlete, Miles Battle top end athlete, things like this. Couldn't figure out what was going on. So I found him on Twitter and I said, look, I can't get any of your numbers. Is there any way that you could just tell me what happened at your pro day? And he got back to me. He sent me a screenshot that had his numbers on it. Now, Miles Battle, very interesting. Listen to these numbers. Cornerback, Miles Battle, Utah, 6'3", 196 pounds, 4.37 40-yard dash. There was another tall cornerback in Kansas City that ran exactly a 4.37 40-yard dash that, guys, I can't remember who it was. It seems that individual just left the team. 37-inch vertical leap, a 10-foot 7-inch broad jump. These are all very good numbers. Now, a couple numbers. So here's something that is interesting about football. There are certain numbers that mean more than others. For example, a 40-yard dash gets you a whole lot further than will, say, a broad jump. He has good numbers in all of these, but there's a certain set of numbers that seem to be getting more and more attention lately. Those are the short shuttle and the 3-cone drill. Now, something that throws these numbers off of whack is that everyone knows they're so important that running a bad time can knock you down draft boards incredibly. So Miles Battle not only ran a 4.37 40, not only had a 37-inch vertical and a 10-foot 7-inch broad jump, standing 6'3", 196 pounds as a UDFA, he also ran a 4.03 short shuttle. Now, I don't know. These numbers are still kind of foreign to me because not only are they so dependent upon your position, they're very difficult to remember, right? What is a good number? What is an elite number? I can tell you this. The number one cornerback in this class was a guy by the name of Mike Sainstrel. He ran a 4.01, which put him in the 85th percentile. Now, that is a bit of a misnomer. 85th percentile because only the people who are elite at this drill participate. So guys who are going to run a 4.33 in the short shuttle, they don't run it. Meaning that all of the numbers are skewed towards the elite numbers. So 403 by memory is a really good number. His 3-cone drill was 684. Now, I don't know a whole lot about that, but the number one defensive back in this class was Miles Harden with a 688, which is 61st percentile. So Miles' battle was better than that. But again, these are numbers that are going to be skewed by the players who are participating. I'm not going to come out and say that Miles' battle is, hey, Lego, what you doing, Dave? I'm not going to come out and say that Miles' battle is L'Jarius Sneed. I'm not going to do that. That would be silly, right? But guys, L'Jarius Sneed himself was a 4th rounder. L'Jarius Sneed himself did not look like L'Jarius Sneed his first year in the league. I'm not going to imply that Miles' battle is L'Jarius Sneed. What I'm going to say is he's got a lot of the same physical profile. What I am going to say is that Miles' battle is going to be a very, very interesting individual to watch through training camp. Remember Khalif Halassi last year. Remember Echo Boydo last year. This guy's going to be one of those guys. Brett Veach has been very good at finding UDFA talent that is NFL talent and getting them on the field even as rookies. The next name on this list, and again, guys, I'm going to have videos, individual videos for all of the draft picks as well as most of these guys. So just bear with me for this. I apologize. Edge Iyabi Oki Onoma out of Charlotte. Now, this is a guy that I was not terribly familiar with, but he has a big name in draft circles. And part of that is because he's 6'4", which is decent, 260 pounds, a decent size, ran a 4.60 40, which apparently is 95th percentile for edge players. Now, here's the interesting thing about him. Started off his college days at Alabama, transferred to Tennessee Martin, transferred to Michigan, transferred to Charlotte, and now he's in the NFL with the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is a guy who is going to be a lot like Truman Jones was last year, a guy who's very toolsy and who is going to get an opportunity to earn his way onto the field. I don't know that Iyabi is going to be more than a practice squad guy this year, but I think he's someone that has the tools, at least, to work his way into some type of role maybe in future years. Somebody who does have a chance to be on the 53-man roster this year. And I mean, so I think Miles' battle could be. That's an extreme athlete. The Kansas City Chiefs signed Florida State defensive tackle Fabian Lovett, who I had every reason to believe was going to be drafted, 6'4", 314 pounds, 35.5-inch arms, leading to an 84-inch wingspan. This guy is a run stuffer. This guy is, give me Bailey, Lovett, Jacobs, and Battle from the UDFA class. So Emani Bailey, is that the Bailey you're talking about? Because there's a Baylor Cupp as well that I'll talk about here. But Fabian Lovett, in a different day and age, definitely would have been drafted. Now, I say in a different day and age, the NFL is a passing league. From what I can find, from what I have seen, from what I know about Fabian Lovett, he's going to offer basically nothing in the pass rush department. That's fine. If we can get somebody who takes up 2 gaps next to Chris Jones, this defensive line looks very, very different, very, very fast. So Fabian Lovett, who probably should have been drafted, finds his way to the Kansas City Chiefs, a team that is in kind of desperate need of defensive tackle actual talent. I'll just put it out there. The Chiefs need defensive tackle talent next to Chris Jones. And Fabian Lovett, so Tershawn Wharton came in and got, I think, 300 to 500 snaps his rookie season as a UDFA out of Missouri Nowhere State University. Fabian Lovett coming out of Florida State, he's going to get an opportunity to be on this roster. The Kansas City Chiefs have not been signing anyone to long-term deals at the defensive tackle position except for Chris Jones. So that tells you a little bit about what they feel. They have talent that is NFL talent, but maybe nobody on the roster that is starter talent. Fabian Lovett, now, obviously, don't listen to me because I said the same kind of things about Keandre Coburn last year, and we saw how that worked out. But Fabian Lovett is with the run stuffing prowess that he has, all he has to do is stand his ground in the passing game, and all of a sudden the Kansas City Chiefs are very much more dangerous on the defensive side of the ball from the defensive tackle position. They haven't gotten a whole lot out of the defensive tackle position besides Chris Jones for a very long time. And again, here's another name. We've seen, I believe, the last 3 years, the Kansas City Chiefs have brought in linebacker talent through the ranks of the UDFA that have been NFL players, that are guys who can take NFL reps on the defense and contribute heavily on the special teams. Curtis Jacobs out of Penn State is a Kansas City Chief. 6'1", 241 pounds, ran a 4.58 40-yard dash, a 35-inch vertical is an okay number, 124-inch broad jump. This is an NFL linebacker. This is definitely a guy who could be a special teams ace. Curtis Jacobs had no business going undrafted, but again, like with Fabian Lovett, a different day and age in the NFL, these guys are mid-rounders. But today, with the emphasis in the game where the emphasis in the game is, Curtis Jacobs falls to the ranks of the undrafted, and the Kansas City Chiefs just keep stockpiling linebacker talent. On to the offensive side of the ball. So here's something worth noting, though, about that group of players on the defense. You have a cornerback, you have an edge player, you have a defensive tackle, and you have a linebacker. You have 4 players, 2 from the defensive line, 1 at least from each level of the defense. And there was another safety and another cornerback that they brought in that I haven't really done too much of a dive into yet, but I remember them kind of having draftable grades, if I'm remembering correctly. So you have a player at each level of the defense coming in as a UDFA who's probably an NFL level player. To the victor go the spoils. If you were a UDFA, you would want to play for the Kansas City Chiefs. Not only do the Kansas City Chiefs win Super Bowls, but they have a long history of playing UDFAs as rookies. On the offensive side of the ball, offensive lineman Ethan Driscoll out of Marshall goes 6'8", 313 pounds, 35 3/8 inch arms, and 83 1/2 inch wingspan. He's not the most coordinated monster that will ever find his way onto the football field. He does have some skills that make you think he could develop into something. Perhaps ironically, maybe I'm abusing the word, but ironically, at 6'8", I think he might end up working at guard more than offensive tackle. He's not good with space. He's a lunger. He's a reacher. He grabs, right? If you can keep him in that phone booth in the middle of the offensive line, he might end up doing better. He's not going to be a mauler of an offensive guard, But if he can learn a couple things from Joe Thuney, he could be a good pass-setting offensive guard. And look, Brett Veach invested a whole lot of assets on the offensive line in this draft. Brett Veach apparently does not want to get into the same type of situation that he saw in an alleged Super Bowl. I don't remember it happening, where the Kansas City Chiefs allegedly lost, so you don't have enough gray in your face to match your voice. You sound like a super healthy 65-year-old. There's some gray in my beard. Since the face reveal, these are the only comments I've gotten. I thought you were older. It could be worse. But Ethan Driscoll, I think, is going to have a chance to redshirt on the practice squad for a season, and he might be an offensive. He might take the Mike Caliendo route to the active roster. So he's an interesting guy to keep an eye on. Another tight end here. So we had Jared Wiley through the draft. We have Baylor Cupp, who, I'm using the word correctly this time, Baylor Cupp, ironically, went to Texas Tech, a tight end who goes 6'6", 260 pounds, 6'6", 260, ran a 4.55 40-yard dash. Now, we talked a little bit about Miles Battle, who's maybe at this point more of an athlete than a football player, but will hopefully get the chance to develop under NFL tutelage. Baylor Cupp has basically zero stats. Basically no stats at all. He has done nothing at the tight end. He has two separate seasons where he had, I believe, 111 and 132 yards, something like that. But I caught Dave's comment. Yeah, I had you pegged much older, but I only saw the I had you pegged, and I got worried. So I panicked a little bit there. Baylor Cupp has zero stats. He's an interesting prospect because of his size, 6'6", 260, but definitely that speed with 4.55. If he is a blocking tight end. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs love to keep a blocking tight end around, right? So if they keep that blocking tight end around with a guy who's 6'6", 260, sort of the same size as Blake Bell did not run a 4.55 40-yard dash to my memory. To my recollection, I believe Blake Bell was in the 4.7s. That's a lot of power to be that big and move that fast if he is able to develop into the blocking tight end that Kansas City Chiefs like to keep around. That's the size for it, and you would be getting a blocking tight end the way that you want to get a blocking tight end as a UDFA, right? Last two names here that I've got on this UDFA preview. Again, I'm going to be making videos for all or most of these guys, as well as the rest of the draft picks. Emani Bailey out of TCU. So I've got you there, Lego. Stop me if you've heard this before. 5'7", 202, a 4.61 40-yard dash. Now we heard through Twitter and the television last night, or 2 nights ago, Jared Wiley is a Travis Kelce clone, right? If that's not a Clyde Edwards-Helaire clone, I don't know what is. 5'7", 202 with a 4.61 40. Last season, he had 223 carries for 1,211 yards and 8 touchdowns. These are good numbers. They're not huge numbers, right? They're good numbers, but he has some really impressive plays on film. He does not stop his legs. That leads to trouble for other players. That leads to trouble for the defense. And look, I thought Clyde Edwards-Helaire had the ability to be a game-changing type running back in the NFL. I really did. You look at the stats he put up at LSU, and it's impossible kind of to say, oh, that doesn't work in the NFL, but it didn't. It has not. So I don't know what the difference could be between Emani Bailey and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But if there is something different to be had between those two, I am certainly hoping that it takes place in Kansas City. I have not looked at the guaranteed money in CEH's one-year contract. If anybody knows that off the top of their head, I would love to know those numbers. But I don't know if there's a guarantee that Clyde's actually on the roster this year. Obviously, Deneric Prince is on the roster right now. He's probably the third running back at this point. I don't know if that is going to be the case going into the season. The Chiefs did not draft one. It means they must be at least moderately comfortable with the running backs they have rostered right now. Or, I mean, running backs are a dime a dozen come training camp, right? They get cut left and right. So maybe they're betting on the fact that they can pick up someone they like there. But the other running back that the Kansas City Chiefs signed as a UDFA is Carson Steele out of UCLA. 6 foot tall, 228 pounds, a 4.50 40-yard dash. I have to admit, Herb, you're going to set me off again. All I have heard is that I should be older, and it's a surprise that I am not AI. So this is verboten, Herb. What was I saying? Oh, Carson Steele. I thought that he went pro last year, which would have maybe been a good move because in 2022, he had 289 carries for 1,528 yards and 14 touchdowns. So, are you saying it's a 1.7 hit that's guaranteed money? Or if they cut him, do they reclaim that money? That's the thing I don't know about. But Carson Steele maybe stayed one season too long in college. Let's go back and see if I've missed any comments here. I identify as an octogenarian. Me too. I live in an apartment full of books. I thought you would look different too. Everyone does. I don't understand. What mojo am I putting out there? A says, I like the tight end pick. Give that room some competition. Maybe it lights a fire under Gray to take a big step up. I don't know that Gray will be back with the Kansas City Chiefs after this season. I don't think that Baylor Cupp probably makes the active roster this year. I think that Jared Wiley is going to come in and be the backup tight end. I think that Noah Gray is going to be basically immediately booted down to third on the depth chart. I've never been a big fan of Noah Gray, so it's possible that my bias is coming through. I never really saw what the fascination with Noah Gray was, so don't necessarily take my word for that. Michael says, too many books. No, that's not too many books. Yeah, see? Everybody's got books. Thought I was older. Where am I at here? I thought the voice was AI. That's how good it is. Sounds 80s sports report good. I will take that as a compliment, but I will date myself and say I know what you're talking about. So Maybe it's not a compliment. Hollywood has soured you on the movies. It's understandable. I did want to be a hidden personality. If I could go back in time and take all my face off the internet everywhere it ever was, I would. The internet is a miserable thing. Dave says the voice does match. I appreciate it. Worthy will produce in this offense. Mock my wits. I think Worthy is going to produce too. The interesting thing about Worthy in this offense is going to be the fact that what do you do with him that is different than what you do with Hollywood Brown? Now, do you have to do anything different with him than you do with Hollywood Brown? Especially if you have two high flyers, Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, and then you have two tight ends on the field, Travis Kelce and Jared Wiley. You might, it sounds kind of silly, but does it? To be running two tight ends, two wide receivers, and a single back every play? Now, I think that's going to be the offense that we really sort of get until Rashee Rice comes back. What else do you do? You could run Justin Watson out there in that X role, but why? One of the things that Xavier Worthy, I don't know exactly how much of the intermediate game Hollywood Brown brings to the Kansas City Chiefs. I do know that Xavier Worthy is so fast at snapping off those routes that he becomes a legitimate threat in the 10 to 18 yard range, in that intermediate, not deep range. He's very good close to the line of scrimmage as well, Xavier Worthy. I don't know that I would tempt the football gods in that way. Drafting a guy who's 107 pounds is difficult in the first place, so I don't know how many end rounds I would give him. I don't know how many jailbreak screens I would throw to Xavier Worthy. But here's the thing. When Rashee Rice comes back from whatever suspension it is that he gets, he's that guy. He's the line of scrimmage guy. I think one of the things that Xavier Worthy is going to make very interesting in this offense, in the same way that Jared Wiley and Isaiah Pacheco are going to make this offense interesting, their versatility will open things up to an empty backfield. You can put Isaiah Pacheco in the slot. You can put Jared Wiley out wide. Obviously, you're going to have Travis Kelce on the field too. This might be one of those offenses that is truly a problem for defenses pre-snap. There's so much versatility with those players that you could have two tight ends and a running back on the field. Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown, Jared Wiley, Travis Kelce, and Isaiah Pacheco, right? You could have those guys on the field as the skill players and line them all out wide. You could run a 5-wide formation with two tight ends and a running back. You're the defense. You have 3 linebackers on the field because there's 2 tight ends and a running back. And then they come out 5 wide. What do? Do you burn a timeout? What do? You could run 5 wide with Isaiah Pacheco, Jared Wiley, Travis Kelce, Hollywood Brown, and Xavier Worthy and still run the ball. You put Isaiah Pacheco in motion, he takes the snap, right? It's going to be very interesting to see. You think Andy Reid's if this schmuck in front of you has thought of this, is there any chance at all Andy Reid has not already run the numbers on these things? I don't remember Jared Wiley's 40. I believe it was 4.6, right? 4.63, 4.65, something like that. Not an elite time, but definitely a guy that's fast enough. There's wide receivers in the league that run a 4.6. Keon Coleman. So yeah, that's going to be the interesting thing to me is exactly what happens formation wise for this team. The ironic part is so oftentimes what has been so interesting for the Kansas City Chiefs is that early season injuries. So, for example, an early season injury forced Nick Bolton onto the field. Well, now you've got your starting middle linebacker. Early season suspensions, all of this early season stuff that pops up problems ends up playing into the hands of the Kansas City Chiefs later on because they've got the gusto to win those early games. But then at the end of that, they already have roles for players that didn't have roles before. So anyway, that's what I had for the UDFA guys. Are there any comments or questions that anybody wanted to get out before we go ahead and get out of here? Now, again, I will be back with full-length videos. Jared Wiley is coming tomorrow for a breakdown from the draft. Then I will have all of the other players from the draft. It's going to be difficult to figure out how to talk about some of these linemen for, to make it a video worth clicking on, right? But I will do my best. But any questions, comments, concerns? Yeah, keeping the long view. Are you talking about with the fact that they took so many offensive linemen? So linemen in the UDFA, the only one that I found that was worth commenting on that I was able to find anything worth commenting on was Ethan Driscoll out of Marshall, Michael. 6'8", 313 pounds, 35 3/8 inch arms, and 83.5-inch wingspan. And I think he played tackle in college. I think he will actually be a guard, possibly in the NFL. Daniel, I don't know the status of Rice. I don't know if anybody does. I have always been of the opinion that probably they're going to come down on him pretty hard. The run game is interesting to me. Yeah, Kathy, that's one of the things that's going to be interesting about the run game is who ends up claiming that backup running back position. If it is Deneric Prince, the Kansas City Chiefs could have a much more power profile than they have had the past couple of years. If Baylor Cupp, this UDFA tight end, finds his way onto the roster, that could be interesting too. That is a big guy, 6'6", 260, running a 4.55 40. You suggested he would be returning at some point, right? Rashee Rice? Yeah, I think he'll return at some point. I am not sure that I don't know when that will be, right? I am of the opinion, and this is just opinion, probably he gets an 8-game suspension. I think that's the way the NFL is going to come down on this because we saw what they did with Jawan Taylor. Jawan Taylor last year was doing nothing that other offensive tackles in the NFL were not doing, and they felt embarrassed because they were called out during a nationally televised game and decided to come down on Jawan Taylor to the tune of Jawan Taylor having as many penalties last season as he did in the first years of his career combined. So Benjamin says the Chiefs should pick up a running back in free agency. They have a couple through UDFA free agency, Emani Bailey and Carson Steele. I think they had another name, but it was a name that I was not completely familiar with. Gary says, I'm a little worried with the abundance of competent receivers. With an abundance of competent receivers, they will have to fight to get touches. Somebody's going to have to get better. I think that is really the lesson here. Somebody's going to have to get better. You're not going to fight for touches. You're going to have to earn them. You will have to earn Patrick Mahomes' trust. We saw what happened with Sky Moore. Sky Moore lost that trust very early, and he's had 2 identical seasons in the NFL. 250-yard seasons, basically. Michael says, going to make bootleg merch if you don't get something out there soon. Need merchandising, ping me. Need a merchandiser, ping me. I know nothing about merchandise. I have some ideas, but I know nothing about merchandise. And honestly, some of the stuff that some of the guys do makes me nervous because of copyright and things like that. So, yeah, I know nothing about it. Where are we at here? Daniel says, love the content. You're my go-to for Intelligent Chiefs news. I appreciate that. That is my goal. My goal is to make videos with a source, some numbers, and an opinion. I try to have all of those for all of the videos that I make. I think that's really sort of a quality control thing. Dave McGee says 8 max. I still see it as 4 to 6. I guess we'll see the number of wide receivers they're going to keep. I don't think there's any way they keep 8 wide receivers. I think the interesting thing to me will be there's not that I could find any compelling names at the wide receiver position in UDFA. Obviously, Xavier Worthy was added to the list right through the draft. The interesting thing is going to be how this plays out in camp. We saw last year that the Kansas City Chiefs were able to flip Ihmir Smith-Marsette for draft position by trading Ihmir Smith-Marsette and a 7th rounder for the 7th rounder of a team that is going to be considerably worse than the Kansas City Chiefs. So those are the small sweeteners that you can get almost every time, depending on what it is that you are doing. What are you trying to do, right? If Brett Veach is willing to take absolutely anything, he's going to be able to trade absolutely anything. How does he find the sweet spot for things that will help the Kansas City Chiefs in order to get some of these players moved? I don't think Brett Veach is a very big fan of just outright cutting players. And if you're able to trade players like Ihmir Smith-Marsette, you're doing your job as a GM, right? How many of those GMs just end up cutting players like that? Chad says, you are one of my favorite Chiefs channels and have been for a long time. You always bring a different perspective and an awesome sense of humor and wit. Keep grinding, bro. I appreciate that. This is not going to be a popular opinion. I really enjoy Colin Cowherd when he talks about anything except for the Kansas City Chiefs. So I try to bring that sort of energy. I think that Colin Cowherd, one of the interesting things about Colin Cowherd to me is that he's constantly bringing other frames of reference, right? So that is something I try to do. Notorious says, Rice leaving the scene of a high-speed chase is a bad look. Well, it's certainly not a good look. I see 10 game appealed to 8. I think that's possible. I really do think that's possible. Yeah, you hate to say something's dumb. Here's what I will say for Rashee Rice. He's 22, 23. I'm lucky. I did not have millions of dollars when I was 22 years old. All of the stupid stuff that I did, I had to do on a budget. Right? All of the stupid stuff I did. Have you ever heard of Night Train? Basically, it's Robitussin in a wine bottle. Very cheap, right? Night Train nights are not good nights. but at least I didn't have a Ferrari at the same time. Jeff says, yes, thought you were older, but you sound more mature, seasoned, and intelligent. I enjoy your content and glad to see you. You have a unique style compared to the other content creators. Thank you. I am working on keeping that style despite the fact that YouTube is going to make me change absolutely everything about the channel. Uh-oh. Axel dropped a Mad Dog 2020. Axel, if you have not had Night Train makes Mad Dog 2020 look like Dom Perignon. I am not kidding. Dave McGee says he hates us. I imagine you're talking about Colin Cowherd. Michael says, like Colin too, especially when Nick cuts in on his show. Yeah, that is. I remember Nick Wright from the night show here in Kansas City. What a breath of fresh air Nick was when he was talking about sports. You know, I would die on Night Train then. I'm not going to encourage you to try your luck on Night Train because I don't want to be to blame, but it is a different experience all around. You know how some people say, oh, well, wine makes me act one way, whiskey makes me act one way. Night Train, you just don't know. Everyone else might remember, but you're not going to. Harvey says, I'm going to go out on a limb and say they'll do the same thing with Justin Ross that they did with Smith Marset. Feature him a lot in the preseason for trade bait. I would not be against that if that's what they think they're going to do. Because, guys, not everybody's going to be making this roster, right? I love Justin Ross as much as you do while the videos are still up because I'm going to have to delete everything. You can go back and watch that Justin Ross video that I made the moment he was signed as a UDFA. I am as big a Justin Ross fan as anyone in the Chiefs community. I don't know how he makes this roster. I think that NFL players sort of come with a ticking clock, right? If at some point you haven't panned out, probably you're not going to. And I'm not saying he's never going to, but I think at some point the team that you're with is going to say, okay, whatever's going to work, it's not going to work here. Maybe you've got it for somebody, but it's not for us. That's why a monumental bust like Kadarius Toney is granted a second chance, but it has to be in a different place. Where are we at here? Oh man, Mad Dog memories. Kathy. What do you know about Mad Dog? Kathy. No. Axel says, I would die on Night Train. Did I already read that one? Mad Dog. Dave says, Mad Dog Banana Red was the worst time of my life. Yeah, there's a lot of... I've had a lot of worst times of my life. Michael says, Night Train is made out of someone's bathtub. Night Train might be made with the bathtub cleaner. I'm not 100% positive. Michael says, I just love Nick trolling the league nationally. Yeah, that's always fun. So the one disconnect I have with Nick, I absolutely do not care about basketball. I don't care about basketball at all. Do I wish Kansas City had an NBA team? Maybe, to shut those people up, right? But I know nothing about basketball. I don't care about basketball. He's very adamant about basketball. Night Train made in the lab. Brother, I don't think that's a lab. Trucker Chris says Nick was great on 6'10", but you should never listen to his betting advice. Back then, he rooted for the underdog way too much. That's Nick, though, right? Here's the thing. Maybe I shouldn't say this. You know what? No, he does it himself. So I'm going to say it. Nick Wright is on television with a face for the radio and a voice for black and white movies, for the pre-talkies, right? He has a grating voice, and that man has a face for the radio if ever there was one. Nick Wright has every right in the world to root for underdogs. It just is what it is. I still hold out hope for Ross, but his time is expiring. Could Justin Ross convert to tight end? I think that's a stretch. I don't think I think he's 212 pounds. I don't. He might end up in the tight end weight range, but I don't know if he's going to keep any of his. So, not a blazer in the first place, right? There's different types of deep threats. He was not a blazing fast deep threat to begin with. He was the guy that, well, he's down there, I'm going to put it up there and give him a chance, and he went and got it. That was the type of deep threat that Justin Ross was. Chiefs fan Steve says, what about the rugby star Zamet? I think he's going to be a factor. Also, put those playmakers on the field at once, could be out of this world. As far as Louis Rees-Zammit is concerned, I'm just going to be I'm going to doubt it until I see it. That I mean, I don't know exactly. I don't know how that translates. I'm not saying it doesn't. Absolutely it could. The guy's built like a football player. So it was just Jordan Mailata. I'm blanking right now. It's about 1 a.m. for me, but Jordan Mailata was a rugby guy. He is now the offensive tackle for the Eagles. He was on the Kelsey's podcast, and he was asked, everyone always says, it would hurt to get hit more in rugby because there's no pads, right? And he was on the Kelsey show, coming from a rugby background, starting at offensive tackle now. And he says, no, that's nonsense, because just as much as that helmet protects you, it's used as a weapon by the other guy. So Boone's Farm, don't get me down these roads, Lego. Don't bring me back to these days, Lego. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So I think that the world of, and that's as an offensive tackle, right? That's not taking hits in the open field. We still haven't seen exactly what position it is that Louis Rees-Zammit is going to be put in, right? So if he is a ball carrier, that's a real different world. If he is a defensive player, if they try him out at linebacker or something, safety, that's a whole different skill set. So Casey had the Kings and sent them off. That is true. Before my day. Hair for a military barbershop, Nick just got. Nick got his hair cut? Nick on that twitchy meds night train? Night train? Yeah, no, Lego, don't endorse Night Train. We can't have that on the channel. I was a kid at 15, 16, mad drank when it passed out. Used to steal it and go to the park to do shots. Woohoo in the morning, though. Yeah, Night Train. I got nothing good to say. Night Train nights come back to you in bits and phrases. Would you rather keep Justin Ross or Remigio? Chad, what a question. Would I rather keep Justin Ross or Nico Remigio? Anybody in the comments have a take on that? That's a good one. Nico Remigio showed me more in camp than Justin Ross has in 2 years of being active on the roster. Nico Remigio is the exact type of wide receiver that would make Patrick Mahomes unstoppable. Right? Nico Remigio is the exact type of wide receiver that would make Patrick Mahomes unstoppable. So, technically, so is Justin Ross, but if Justin Ross was Justin Ross, the Moss guy, the guy that just mosses people left and right, you have to think that that would have manifested by now, at least on some level, more than the single catch that he had in the preseason last year, right? It was a beautiful catch, great play, happened once. Junie says hello. Hello, Junie. Do you think Xavier Worthy will be the Chiefs' starting wide receiver? I believe he will during the absence of Rashee Rice. I think that, so the Kansas City Chiefs, I think, will rarely go with fewer than 3 wide receivers on the field, though they do have a nice, shiny new tight end, like I talked about earlier. I think that once Rashee Rice comes back, assuming that he is in shape and everything, Andy Reid's going to have a lot of fun sending Xavier Worthy in motion. I think that's how that's going to work out. Heike Mo says Nico. I don't know if I'm going to argue with you. Axel says Remigio, if healthy. That might be the answer. Dave says Remigio. Michael says, yeah, Nico. Nobody is sticking up for Justin Ross. Guys, the Justin Ross video was what kind of set my channel off when it dropped. I think at the time I was the only one maybe talking about it. Justin Ross did way too much at Clemson not to see his potential. That's right, Michael. I mean, some of that stuff as a freshman in a national championship game against Alabama. I mean, he was going up against NFL talent as an 18-year-old kid on the biggest stage there is at the college level, on a stage that I would say even the NFL doesn't have a stage that big prior to the playoffs. So it's sad to see what happened there. Axel says Hollywood Brown, number 1 wide receiver. Prior to Rashee Rice coming back or even after, Axel? Michael says Tony and Sky and Justin last chance with Rashee out. So yeah, the interesting thing there is that while Rashee Rice is suspended, the Kansas City Chiefs will have a position on the roster from the commissioner's exemption. So they will be able to carry one more wide, if they choose to carry the wide receiver, they will have space to carry one more wide receiver on the roster until Rashee Rice comes back. The trade deadline, did the trade deadline move back to week 10 this year? I know they were talking about doing that. I don't know if they ever did that. If it did, that will be huge for the Kansas City Chiefs if Rashee Rice is suspended for 8 games, because that will give them 2 weeks to build someone up through the regular season, see who is in need, and maybe make a trade there. I still have hope for Ross, but this is year 3. He has got to explode in camp. That's right. I think that's right, Dave. When you start to look at the numbers, 6 wide receivers is probably the tops you're going to get. You've got Rashee Rice, but there's going to be an exemption for him. So you've got Hollywood Brown. You have Xavier Worthy. Justin Watson is as good a number 4 wide receiver as you could ever hope to have, right? So there's 3 guys right there. What are you doing behind them? You have to imagine Kadarius Toney makes the roster just because the coaching staff has spoken so highly of the talent that's there. Are you keeping Sky Moore? That makes 5. I don't know. That's 5. Then you have any host of wide receiver, Nico Remigio, Justin Ross, anybody at the bottom end of that depth chart that is going to be the temporary guy until Rashee Rice comes back. Axel says maybe the Jags will want Justin Ross in a trade given he played so well with the Prince. They didn't sign him coming out of college, though. So maybe. Michael Donegan says, would be crazy to see a rugby player take out all 3 of them. I hadn't even considered that. I had not even considered that. Kathy says, the sound of Mahomes, Kelsey, Hollywood, Worthy, Rice, dream team. Don't forget Jared Wiley, if he is in there. Obviously, that's a lot of potential versus productivity, but Axel says, I think with Mahomes, Hollywood Brown will explode and be a dominant number 1, Tyreek Hill Jr. I think that's possible. He looked good. I mean, he looked good immediately. His first game in the NFL was when he had that 60-yard touchdown, I think, just flicked out there, and he ran under it. He had am I wrong that he had 130 yards in his very first NFL game? Something ridiculous, and everybody just said, well, they've won the Super Bowl. They did not win the Super Bowl. Chad says, do you think Chamari will be moved to corner, and that's why we drafted a safety? I'm not sure. The safety situation for the Kansas City Chiefs, the one thing that I worry that we can read into it from the Kansas City Chiefs selecting a safety so high in this draft is that maybe the injury with Brian Cook is worse than we are thinking at the time, right? So that was a nasty looking injury in and of itself. I don't know if you've ever had an ankle injury. Ankles are rough. Ankles are awful. And there's a whole bunch of little bones in there that can go all sorts of different directions. And once they do, they just might not go back. And frankly, I don't think I've heard an update on him since the injury. So the one thing I worry is that if we can read anything from that move by this, well, and it could just be, look, Brett Veach is going to draft defensive backs. But if we can read anything into it, it might be that Brian Cook is not set to come back early in the season. Stoic drill sergeant. We've got stoicism in the house. The Daily Stoic. If you have not read that, very, very much worth it. I have a stash of books to my left here, so it took me a second to find that one. But where are we at here? Daily Stoic said something, or Stoic Drill Sergeant said, Michael, about LRZ, yeah. Anybody else with anything to talk about for a couple minutes? I'll probably stick around for another couple minutes. I can't imagine Plato as a drill sergeant. That is slightly before most stoicism. Seneca would not make it as a drill sergeant, I don't think. Marcus Aurelius maybe would. Anybody else with obscure philosophy questions? Love TK's heir apparent's highlights. Wouldn't doubt if they give Trav 1/3 rest going into the playoffs. Yeah, so that's going to be an interesting thing with him is how much time can Kelsey take off during the regular season? He gets monster amounts of reps. So giving him some time off every now and then would probably be a good thing. Steele grew up not far from me, maybe 50 miles north of Carson Steele? Greg? He was an absolute stud in high school at the biggest school classification. Really? That's crazy. We had to get rid of Tommy Townsend in order to sign Carson Steele because there's only one white guy with long hair allowed on a roster at a time, I believe. I think that's a rule in the NFL. Anybody want to talk about Jacques Derrida? Some hauntology philosophy? Maybe some nihilism? Dmitry Pisarev? We can go in all these directions. No one's down for that. Okay, I understand. I'll just go back to being sad. Steele is not a pro running back fast, but definitely not pro running back fast. 4.5. There's plenty of running backs in the league that run less than a 4.5. I don't know a whole lot about him. If I remember hearing about his 1,500-yard season. If I remember right, he's kind of like Cody Schrader in that he's really a one-cut guy. If I remember right, but I haven't looked back into it. The Chiefs could use a one-cut guy, one-cut-and-go guy. Michael says, looking at our roster, we got crazy weapons for dual players on new kickoff return format. I'm not sure what the best weapon is for that. I think that the guys like Carson Steele might be the best for that, because taking that kickoff with everyone, is it 10 or 20 yards ahead of you? That's a lot like a running back position. So if you can get a running back that has just great one cut and go ability, is able to break a couple tackles, we might see some touchdowns. Dave says one must imagine Sisyphus happy. Do we have to, though? So don't let me get too Jordan Peterson on you here. What do you mean by happy? What does happy mean? Is happiness joyful? Or do we feel most happy when we are useful? Because if one is imagining Sisyphus is happy, it has to be the joyful type, because the work that with which he is entrusted is absolutely meaningless. Greg says Steele benches over 400 and squats over 600. He also has a pet alligator. I'm sold. We've got a fullback again. We have another fullback. You bench 400, you squat 600, and you have an alligator. You don't get to play running back. You have to be a fullback. Michael says on kickoff, have 2 back for crazy rugby lateral plays. That's tempting, but you're also very close to your own end zone. Contentment, Dave. That's right. It's only contentment. About Time says, I'm most happy when my wife is smiling and my dog is smiling. Yeah, there's no happiness for men, right? Who cares about us? Michael says, ultimate lasting happiness is finding purpose. I believe so. Stoic Drill Sergeant says, I think I am a joyful Sisyphus. We really turned this into a philosophy discussion. I am so proud of us. Do you think Raiders YouTube has philosophy discussions at 1 p.m. on a Sunday? I do not. Chiefs again says bring Kareem Hunt back. It's been a half a decade, man. We got to get over it. Greg says, Greg says, I think happiness is being content where you are at in life. We really did this thing. We turned this. Have you ever seen there is a Onion skit on YouTube, and it is about the Titans and Jaguars playing, and Fred Taylor lost his mind at the coin flip, and he says the referee tells him to call heads or tails, and he refuses. And the referee says, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I refuse. If our future as football players is dependent upon the waffling of this little metal disc thrown but haphazardly into the wind, and our future is dependent on that in this game, and this game decides the fate of our season, and our season decides the fate of our careers as football players, are we not but blades of grass thrown into an uncaring wind? Oh no, I've summoned them. Raiders Nation is here to have philosophical discussions." What a perfect franchise for talks about nihilism. And anyway, the skit from The Onion ends with the Jaguars retreating to the locker room while the Titans are going to, quote, go out and give whatever percentage they want. You've got to look at that. You have to look at that skit. It's the funniest thing I've ever seen. I go back and watch it every year. YB Negative says, amen to bout time. Happiness can be found in the bottom of a good bottle of bourbon as well. That's no Night Train. All we are is dust in the wind. That is right, Greg. Blades of grass cast into an uncaring wind. Home Run Podcast. Love it. Thank you, Star Ward. Dave says, see, this is why I love your content. This is the only place you're getting this. DDT says, we're coming for you. Now, I want to know, DDT, are you going to be talking about Stoicism and Marcus Aurelius? Will you be channeling Pisarev for some nihilistic intent? Tell me, DDT. Tez says, we can teach you guys how to win a playoff game in your building. There's no need for that. There's no need for that, Tezzy. We don't have to go there this time. Michael says, only one kingdom which rules them all. More than one ring, though. More than one ring. We beat you on Christmas. You did. Very good. Thank you for being here. We beat you on Christmas. That actually does kind of piss me off. That was the most angry I was this past season. Now, it was the most angry I got on the way to a Super Bowl victory, but that Christmas game was legitimately the most angry I was all season. I will admit, you've got us there, DDT. That was their Super Bowl. Yeah, I think so. Unfortunately, I think so. That game was crazy. That game was so wild. That game was the closest I had felt to like Vermeil era playoffs that I felt since. Remember Vermeil era playoffs? You just strapped in and knew this is going to be 60 minutes of suck. None of the suck is going to make sense. Like, it's just going to suck. Like, there's going to be no, oh, I saw that coming. It's going to be just, how does this happen to professional football players? Suck. That game was the closest I have been to Vermeil era playoff suck. Don't think about that. Merry Christmas. You got coal the rest of the year in your socks. Raiders fans don't wear socks. About Time says that game made me yell F-bombs on Christmas for shame. Isn't it wild? That was the same team that weeks later won the Super Bowl. And not only the team that weeks later won the Super Bowl, the team that weeks later took the field for the Super Bowl, and basically everyone in Kansas City was like, yeah, we got this. Think about how you thought about this Chiefs team just after the Raiders loss compared to taking the field for the Super Bowl. Just think about that. You want to talk about the need for stoicism in your life? That emotional swing illustrates perfectly the need for stoicism in your life. Santa Reed is bringing his full bag of tricks and treats. Andy Reid's laid a couple bags on the Raiders' chins. So is DDT gone? Did he leave? YB Negative says, your win on Christmas was Jesus' consolation prize. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Michael says, Christmas was a stocking up karma game. Stoic Drill Sergeant, this is a gold mine trying to get stuff done, but I gotta type. I suck at typing. This is my new favorite place to be. Yeah, this is here's an apology I owe all of you guys. It is difficult I'm not a tech guy. I have a full-time job. From time to time, I have a part-time too. It is difficult for me to respond to comments. It is difficult for me to get back to people. I was not expecting before YouTube hit me, like YouTube hit me, to ever do live streams. So this has been a whole lot of fun. Bless you, DDT. The Chiefs always hold Devontae Adams. Okay. At least the Chiefs assault Devontae Adams on the field. It's the off-the-field assault from Devontae Adams on members of the Chiefs Kingdom that are a little bit troubling. Sea-Dog says that was the last loss of this. That wasn't it? Dave says Andy thanked their coach for lighting a fire. Yeah. Ruben, hey TSA. Hey Ruben, how you doing? Kathy says nice place for a Lombardi trophy. Oh, you mean right here? Right in front of my Emily Dickinson book? My Harold Bloom compilation? Tezzy says, yeah, he went to look up how to win a playoff game. We shouldn't make fun. We will, but we shouldn't. Dave says you owe us nothing more. I do though, right? I have no right to your time. The fact that you guys spend so much time with me on a weekly basis is incredible to me. I'm if you can't tell by the get up behind me, I'm a recluse. Like I'm not a social person, I'm not a people person. So this stuff is the interaction that I get. And I've been selfish with it, not replying to comments and things. Patrick Mahomes' quote in the golf cart said it all. I don't win blowouts. I'm good for TV. He ain't trying to break the NFL. I think he will this year. I think that this is going to be their staging a comeback. I think that this is... Do you remember? It was 2008. That was the Patriots' perfect season, right? 2008? 2007? I can never get that right. Anyway, that preseason, the Patriots signed Wes Welker. And everybody that was my age was a big Madden player, and we all knew Wes Welker is really good because he's really good on Madden. We knew it. We knew it for a fact. but he just wasn't being used right. So they signed Wes Welker, and everybody said, oh, they're trying to go undefeated. And then they got Randy Moss, and everybody said, oh, they're trying to go undefeated. They're trying to take revenge on the NFL. I think, look, Andy Reid has 3 rings now. Patrick Mahomes has 3 rings now. Do they want to get another ring? Absolutely. Sure they do. Why wouldn't they? Do they want to make NFL history? That would be even better. They have always been a little bit reserved. And the NFL tried to punish them last year with this Jawan Taylor stuff. The NFL tries to punish them by suspending their players for the same things that other people get slaps on the wrist for. I think this, and you can see it in Brett Veach's eyes. When Brett Veach says, okay, we're going to revamp the offense for Patrick Mahomes and the fact that he has a cannon. Guys, I think they're coming for blood this year. I really do. That was a pretty good Patrick Mahomes. It was. I've been working on it. Kathy says, yes, a three-peat makes history. You know what else makes history, though? What else makes history? The three-peat makes history. The Super Bowl itself makes history. Another thing that makes history is being undefeated. I think they're going to go for it. If they are 15-0 and they have the division locked up and the number 1 seed locked up, I don't think they're taking the pedal off the gas or their foot off the pedal. Another thing that makes history, we've hit 5,000 passing yards before. Why not 6? I think they are going for blood in every facet that they can pull it off this season. Chiefs again says, why everybody calling us the new Patriots? That's the goal. We don't have to like it, but that is the frame of reference. And it's the only frame of reference. Make no mistake. There are other dynasties. The only frame of reference for what the Kansas City Chiefs are doing is the Patriots. The only frame of reference if the Kansas City Chiefs win a Super Bowl this year is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. No one will have ever done what the Kansas City Chiefs are doing if they win a Super Bowl this year. Greg says, Kansas City still have a lot of cap space. Is a Moss-style addition still impending? Could be a trade or a signing. I don't know. The only wide receivers that are out, there's really only, I don't know. I want, what's old boy that was with the Raiders? Hunter Renfrow. I want Hunter Renfrow. I don't know what he does in this offense now that we have what we have. Obviously, Andy Reid would not struggle to use a Hunter Renfrow. I just don't know what it is. I think if there is a big signing to be made, it probably a left tackle. I'm a big fan, always loved your show, but I always knew you read a lot of books. By the way, I'm a cousin of the GOAT, Patrick Mahomes. Keep up the great content. You're the GOAT's cousin? Does that make you Billy Goat? Yes. Dave says, I agreed. Is pedal to the metal, claws out, blood on the field? I think so. The way they have acted this offseason, I think so. Michael, imagine Hollywood getting 1,200 plus and signing a 3-year deal at 20 per. With who was the wide receiver from the Eagles that just got re-signed? I'm going to blank on his name, but that deal was a monster. that is going to shake up the market something fierce. So I think the Kansas City Chiefs, Brown. I think the Kansas City Chiefs might be drafting wide receivers for a while now. If A.J. Brown is getting basically $30 million a year, wasn't that what it was? I think the Kansas City Chiefs might be drafting wide receivers for a while. About time. I'm telling you, as a born in KCMO in 1973, I'm totally loving this team and what they're delivering. Waited my lifetime to see this and am soaking it up. Yeah. And it's interesting. I got into football kind of late. I got into football when I was in the 4th grade. And thinking about the Lynn Dawson years, I mean, when I was in the 4th grade, one of the big things in sports was trading cards. And at Antioch Mall, there was a trading card store. And I would go in all the time, and they had a couple Lynn Dawson cards, and they had a couple Otis Taylor cards, all on display. And I remember looking at those players and thinking, God, that was so long ago. They're from like 1969, 1970. And here it was, 1996. And now I realize kids who are falling in love with the Kansas City Chiefs right now, those guys, kids who are falling in love with the Kansas City Chiefs right now, are looking back at those teams, those Marty year teams, with the same amount of that was forever ago that I was looking back at the Lynn Dawson years. That makes me feel ancient. I remember trade nights where some old timer would be talking about, well, I used to listen to old Lenny on the radio, how we would throw the ball. You didn't see it. It was on the radio, right? How could you be a fan if all the football you knew was on the radio? And you kind of laugh at him because you're a kid. And now these kids are thinking, how were you a fan of Marcus Allen when the television wasn't even flat? It was a rounded screen. You had to adjust the colors. So, yeah, Antioch. That's right. I am that years old. Devin says, do you think that Xavier Worthy will be the Chiefs starting? I think he's going to start. Yeah, absolutely. I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to start 3 wide receivers. In the beginning of the season, he is going to be the number 2 wide receiver. And after that, he will be the slot wide receiver, which does not necessarily mean he is the 3rd wide receiver. It just means that's the role for him. Andy Reid likes roles for people, not necessarily the number 1, number 2, number 3 wide receiver stuff. Lego says, I must have watched 20 to 30 YouTube content creators judging the team's draft, good or bad, and 90% of them think we had a bad draft or F grade. They're wrong, right? So maybe there are all sorts of teams who could have had the same draft that the Kansas City Chiefs have had and it be an F draft. Xavier Worthy's not going to get wasted in Kansas City the way that he would in, say, Las Vegas. You look at the 2nd round, Kingsley Suamataia is a guy who can be a high-end starting left tackle in the NFL. If you can get that in the 2nd round, Kingsley Suamataia is going to be a starter on an offensive line at some point, probably halfway through his rookie season. Where is it on the line? There's going to be some argument for, right? But he's going to be a starter. He's going to be starting level player, right? He might not start on this line simply because of the players that are in place. Jared Wiley is a start. There are probably 5 or 6 teams in the NFL for whom Jared Wiley would start. So those 3 right there are making these things. I haven't gone into depth on this draft class yet. That's going to be coming in the coming days. I will be having videos for all of these players that the Kansas City Chiefs drafted. The incredible thing about this draft to me, just from the top down, those first 3 picks are saying, hey, we're going to try to win. Every pick after that has long-term implications. You think that, okay, they took 3 offensive linemen. How many of them do you think are going to be bad? Brett Veach does not have the greatest history with offensive linemen. I will grant you that. I bet 2 of them are going to work out. Kingsley Suamataia, one of them. That's an offensive tackle. Those are hard guys to get. I don't think that this is an F-level draft. I think that there's not a lot of shiny stuff in this draft. There's one great big shiny piece at the very top that everybody thinks was overdrafted, but they got their guy and they're going to know how to use him. After that, there's no shiny stuff. That's probably the problem people are having with this draft class. There's no shiny stuff. About Time says, I met Lynn, Otis, and Hank. Otis was just an awesome guy. I place him above the other 2 after missing them all. A couple years ago, I made a video arguing for Otis Taylor in the Hall of Fame. Stand by that. About Time says, I remember when KCPD used to give away their custom Chiefs cards. Just walk up to a police officer and ask for a card. I never had the Chiefs. I remember the Royals cards. I never had the Chiefs cards. Was that before or after 93, I think was when the Royals cards were. King Jamie says, hey bro, finally a day off for me. Slept and worked through most of this draft. Yeah, I think a lot of people were not able to get this draft off. I don't know if it's something in the economy or what's going on. Thanks for the videos because I listen to them at work. If I download, I don't have the option to hit the like button, so I try to. Don't worry about it, man. I'm going to be making the content regardless. I apologize to you that this is a live stream as opposed to those videos that I have promised. I will get to them. Chiefs fan Steve says, wow, Antioch Mall, I know where that's at or was. It was. And now they put other stuff up that is already failing. I remember Antioch and Bannister Mall. We are old folks, guys. Well, back in my day, we had malls. Worthy, Hollywood, and Tony. And when Rice gets back, that's just crazy. I was thinking about that. Different personnel groups. If the Kansas City Chiefs roll out Hollywood Brown, Xavier Worthy, and Kadarius Toney, who do you put on them? Am I wrong? I don't remember Kadarius Toney's 40 time. It was insane. I remember that much. So you roll out a guy with a 4.27 40, a guy with a 4.21 40, and a guy with, I believe he was in the 4.2s. I thought he was a 4.29 guy. Or a 4.33 guy. 4.37. I was wrong. He's the slowest of the group. You roll out there with 3 wide receivers, 4.21, 4.27, 4.37. What personnel group does the defense run onto the field? I don't know. I really don't. I like King Jamie says, I like Worthy helps us get back to the Legion of Zoom. The Legion of Zoom today puts the Legion of Zoom of old to shame, with the exception of Tyreek Hill. Sammy Watkins, I believe, was a 4.41 guy, and that was when he had 2 legs. Demarcus Robinson, I believe, was a 4.56 or a 4.60 guy. So, of course, McCole Hardman was a 4.33 guy, but a 4.33 in a straight line because there was no wiggle to that man whatsoever. So this Legion of Zoom, this is the Legion of Zoom. Kathy says, I like Hansen as well. Yeah. There's a lot to like with a lot of these guys. Greg says, don't listen to negative Chiefs content creators. They are typical KC sports fans that always think the sky is falling. This is a weird market. Kansas City is a weird market for sports. It's the same as the Mizzou market. We are constantly waiting for the other foot to drop, the other shoe to drop. What's the expression? I don't even know the expression anymore. But that's what it is. We are constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. And the moment we think we see it, we are hardwired to point it out so that we can be disappointed first. Tell me that's not accurate. Tell me that's not how this market works. We want to point out the suck before it happens so we can be disappointed first. I think you and Cole would be an interesting pair on HBTC channel. You should invite him on here. I am not a tech guy, Michael. I realized that I missed the guys at All Chiefed Up sent me a link to be on their channel during the draft, and I completely blanked on it. I did not see that it had happened, so I feel so bad. I hope they believe me and don't think that I was just saying shove off. But that sucks. And I don't know how to work. If I were to hit that link, I don't know what happens next. I am not prepared for the internet era. Pre-93 for sure. Okay. So that was pre-93, so maybe early Schottenheimer era. King Jamie says, I'm really surprised this channel hasn't just exploded. You have great voice for this. Maybe you should do more live shows and live game reaction streams. I will. So I was not planning on ever doing the face stuff on the channel. I've had terrible interactions on the internet. And if I could keep my face offline for the rest of the stuff I ever do online, I would have done it. But now that this is not only an option, but maybe a necessity, I will definitely look into that. Greg says, shiny stuff wins games in the trenches and QB win championships. Yeah. So Mahomes, after last season, is clearly fixated on championships. C-Dog has a George Brett rookie card somewhere. Rookie in, what was Brett a rookie in like 78? Something like that? That's way pre-wax era, so that's going to be, you got some money in that. Michael says 138 watching and only 43 likes. I show 82 likes. I think that some of the stream stuff is behind sometimes. Got to Bannister Mall, then hit the Dollar Theater. Was the best day. Man. Amazon ruins everything. About Time says, I went to lots of Royals games. Remember the 85 World Series. Hate Brett to this day, but had entire team's autographs aside from him and Wilson. He signed my ball and chucked it, and I watched it roll in. That's, yeah. That's one of the, so, yeah, George Brett, man. George Brett's one of these guys that is a local legend, and no one likes him. Yeah. He's a California guy. Maybe that's it. About Time says a puddle of oil ruined. I missed something. Lego says Big Facts 100 TSA, you ain't never lie. No, I do not, but I have no idea what that's about. Oh, yeah, about how Kansas City sports fans are. It's weird. It is what try running a channel through this. It's wild. It is wild. What are your thoughts on the Arrowhead Stadium situation? I don't know. Right now, so the whole Casey Tennant stuff and everything, I don't really know anything about. I have feelings on those sorts of things, but I don't know, and as far as the Chiefs are concerned with this, I have to believe that the Kansas City Chiefs are staying in Kansas City. It is hard for me to see the situation where they will leave, but I think there's still way too early to tell anything too. So it's way too early. I know a lot of people got very upset. I think that is way, way, way too early to get upset. So if that's you, if you are one of these people who's very upset by this thing, just remember we're way far out. Oh, the ball he chucked rolled in a puddle of oil and was ruined. It's so funny because George Brett is like every Jack Nicholson character. You know what I mean? Like every story you hear about George Brett, he's basically Jack Nicholson in a movie. But why? Sea Dog coming in hot with menthol mint schnapps will put hair on your chest. Menthol mint schnapps. I don't think I've ever had that. I'm not much of a schnapps type guy. So I don't really do sweet. I guess I do some sweet stuff with liquor, but I think that's just too much for me, maybe. Dirty gin martinis. They are the pinnacle. No one can make them, but they are the pinnacle. Where are we at? Chiefs fan Steve says, I'm excited for the Chiefs this year with all the weapons they have. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening with the final roster. I think that there's going to have to be players traded because I think there's going to be players that they know are not going to slip through waivers and onto the practice squad. Lego says, TSA, when the day comes and you need mods, I'm here for you, brother. I'll be happy to. I don't even know how that would work. If you want to know how embarrassingly, this is why everyone thinks I'm 80 years old. Everybody thinks they think I'm 80 years old because of the sound of my voice, when really it's because I have absolutely no idea about anything that's going on. I'm lost. And do you want to know like the wildest thing? The wildest thing about the fact that everyone thought I was 65 to 80 years old? Guys, that's my primary market on YouTube. When I look at my stats, it's that age range. 98% of YouTube is the 18 to 24 demographic. Well, probably 80% of YouTube is the 18 to 24 demographic. 15% is the 25 to 35 demographic. So the fact that I have found nearly 5,000 people in the 50 and older demographic to subscribe to a single channel is phenomenal. That is a statistical anomaly, the likes of which may never be duplicated. Greg says, and I think That's why most of my comment sections are so civil. Greg says, I agree with you. Chiefs and Royals will stay in Kansas City area. Just those local taxpayers will lose calling the teams theirs. I don't know about the Royals. The Royals have been such a disaster for so long that I think it's possible they move. Chad says, remember how much they talked about Brett's hemorrhoids in that World Series? YouTube George Brett, the greatest story ever told. Anyone who can tell that self-deprecating a story isn't a jerk. So I don't understand how he's such a jerk. I was 11 at the time. I'm sorry to laugh about time, but it's like, do you remember a Christmas story? Not a Christmas Carol. Christmas Story, right? You'll shoot your eye out. That drunken Santa with the mean elves that kicks the kid down the slide. That's George Brett. You seem like a cognac kind of guy, Scrambling Armchair. I'm an old crow kind of guy. That is embarrassing to admit, but I am an old crow kind of guy. The reason I know I like dirty gin martinis is because it's embarrassing to order Old Crow in public. Sea Dog, I like gin, not straight though, like a Tom Collins or something. I don't know what a Tom Collins is. Gin and I don't know if I'm allowed to do this on YouTube. Gin and club soda is actually pretty good. That's how I used to do my gin. Because I couldn't make a dirty gin martini. Sometimes I would just pour some olive juice in there and a couple olives, and that's close enough for me. It's close enough for a lot of bartenders too. So if you find someone who knows how to make a dirty gin martini, keep them. About Time says, I'm all in on bourbon. I'm all in on bourbon. The lower the shelf, the better, baby. King Jamie the Mad says, if Rice wouldn't have been a knucklehead, yeah, and had been looking at possible games missed and Tyreek would have taken deals, we would really be looking at a unicorn team, a mythical creature nobody had ever seen before. Would we, though? Don't forget, Trent McDuffie is here because of Tyreek Hill. And I don't remember exactly what the other picks were, but Tyreek Hill, I'm never going to talk ill of the man's skills, but he may have been worse for the team dynamic than we realize, right? We got rid of the guy and won 2 consecutive Super Bowls with 0 wide receivers. So what is going on there? John says, if they move to San Antonio, I'm moving there, no lie. The Chiefs are the Royals. I'm not moving anywhere for the Royals. King Jamie the Mad says, wait, you calling us old? I'm not. The demographics are. Evan Williams. Even Evan. Oh my goodness, I am way behind here. Greg says he's 64. Chad says he's 53. King Jamie's in here at 52. Chiefs fan Steve at 49. Mike Smith at 60. Yeah, see, we're all together here. Michael at 63. Lego at 48. Ruben at 48. Ruben, I had always imagined you much younger because I have never met an adult Ruben, I don't think. I knew a Ruben when I was in school, who is an adult now, obviously, but he was not at the time. That's weird, isn't it? How sometimes names, disembodied names, will carry certain connotations for you. We could get back into philosophy. Maybe we could go with the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, right? We could get into these other myriad discussions. YB Negative says, look into super chats. You would do well if anyone could get to the point of giving up their day job. It's you. So I think when I was demonetized, the super chats are taken away too. I think that's how that works. I appreciate it though, YB Negative, but I think that's how that works. About time says Brett kicked me down the slide with a vengeance. Oh, yeah, King Jamie says, I agree with you. I was just talking about sheer speed. Yeah. I don't know, it would have been interesting to see Tyreek Hill actually run a 40. Looking at Xavier Worthy on the football field, who runs a legitimate 4.21 40, he does not have breath. So he very fast. I'm shaking my desk too much. I apologize. Very fast. I have not seen any plays from Xavier Worthy that take my breath away like Tyreek Hill did. There was some times where Tyreek Hill was on the field and you just went, right? Sua Matea being drafted. What is Wanye's future? About time is 51. Jay in here at 61. Steve at 64 and a half. C-Dog in here at 7 up and Gin. Dave at 48. Yeah, see? It's strange because so much of YouTube is such a younger audience. It's just it's weird. Like I don't know. I don't understand how that statistical anomaly works. What is Wanye's future? I have never seen Wanye as a left tackle. This makes me wonder if the Jawan Taylor stuff, well, I mean, they want a starting left tackle because they want to win a Super Bowl again, right? So where do you take one? It's hard to find one. It makes me wonder if the Jawan Taylor stuff is getting at the coaching staff as well, if they are willing to concede, Gin and club soda with a pinch of lemon juice is a Tom Collins. Oh, okay. Okay. So I was making Tom Collins and didn't even know it. Royals are off to a pretty good start this year. Keough may be a really good manager. I've heard about that. I haven't looked into it too much. Michael says Tyreek to Miami blasted PM into the GOAT atmosphere. His evolution is legendary. It's crazy to see. It's crazy to see. Guys, I had 6 receptions for the Chiefs last year. That's how bad things were. And he just went ahead and won a Super Bowl. About Time says YouTube is pretty much, yeah, me too. YouTube is my primary agent of socialization. I am subscribed to so many YouTubers and have so many of them on notification, which, by the way, if you have not utilized notifications, they revolutionize your YouTube experience. The little bell icon on certain channels, it sends a notification to your phone whenever that channel posts a video, makes YouTube so much better. Bout Time says going over the handlebars at 70 miles per hour is not good for the body. Don't do that, Bout Time. We need you here. Stoic says we were too one-dimensional counting on Reek's speed. Yeah, and you have to wonder how much of that dynamic was just because it was there, right? Like, if you're Patrick Mahomes and you have that ability, why not? And how much of it was we've all worked with that guy that has an aggravating thing he does at work, and you let him do it just to shut him up, right? How much of it was Patrick Mahomes didn't want to hear from Tyreek Hill in the locker room? Screw it, I'll throw him this one too. I've always wondered that. Michael says Worthy is smooth, long stride, fast, not jitterbug feet fast like Reek. That's interesting. I'll have to go back and watch those. So, That makes sense. Tyreek does have he's got a lot of wiggle. I see stop ability from Worthy, but I don't know if I see a whole lot of wiggle. Kathy says, still relishing the Mad Dog Cherry Vodka days. Cherry Vodka's too much for me, Kat. I don't even know what that is. And I was a bottom shelf snake. What is Cherry Vodka, Kathy? About Time says, YouTube, pretty much all I watched. The only time I watched... Oh, yeah. Did I already read these things? Where am I at? I'm losing it, guys. I got to be up at 8, so I'm going to have to get off here. Mentor Pilot is a great aviation YouTube channel. I will have to look into that, David. I don't know anything about aviation, but if it's on YouTube, I'm willing to learn about it. Ruben says Hill has speed and the joystick effect. That is very true. Steve says Bert, a great radio talent, passed away when Trump was in office. I can't think of his name, but your style is a carbon copy. He talked politics, etc. Steve, is it Steve? Not Steve Harvey. Harvey. And that's the whole story with Harvey. Is this Paul Harvey? Yeah. Is it Paul Harvey? Is that who you're thinking of? I get that a lot too. I'm liking the idea of Hollywood and Worthy and Rice out there because Big Trav will be wide open all year. King Jamie, I don't think you're wrong. Teams are going to have to pick their poison this year. John says 49 here, and we gravitate to a genius. By Harold Bloom. Oh, it's got some dust on it. Haven't taken that one down for a while. All right. Yes, C-Dog. I think that Wanye Morris is primed to be a right tackle too. I think that maybe Wanye or Jawan Taylor's on the fritz. King Jamie says, I love YouTube. I look for fellas and enjoy and stick with them. Jets Media has me for a mod because I'm nice to them. I am the Chiefs fan who remembers how hard and sad the Sundays were. Here's another thing. They probably keep you on as a moderator because you are able to tell when New Yorkers are being too New York. And if you're in New York, you don't know when New Yorkers are being too New York. So, all right, guys, I probably got to go. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for spending some of this afternoon with me. Rush Limbaugh. I remind you of Rush Limbaugh. I'm not that bombastic. I don't think. Worry if Pacheco gets hurt. A low-end high school days drink. That's the cherry vodka. I'm not much of a vodka guy. I've never been a vodka guy. But, all right, guys. It was good spending time with you. And hopefully I'll have you back. I hope to be back tomorrow with a video for Jared Wiley. And after that, we will go consecutively through the draft and then some of these UDFA guys as well. Thank you for being here. And I hope to have you back for the next one.